Why is the world of credit so confusing and stuck in the past?
And why isn't lending a topic we're comfortable talking about with our friends?
This week, we sit down with Kate Harrison, Head of Rewards at Yonder, to discuss how Yonder is changing up the credit industry and why credit really does matter.
Kate, we're so excited to have you here. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I'd love to start this conversation by asking you about gender when it comes to credit. We hear a huge amount about the gender pay gap and even the gender investment gap. But what about the gender credit gap? Does it exist? And if so, what's behind it?
Firstly, thank you so much for having me. I've been so excited to come on here ever since I met you, Ellie. But yeah, let's dive straight in at the deep end. It's funny, my journey with credit is quite interesting because prior to Yonder, I did not have a credit card. And so my learnings have been very recent. They've been literally 18 months since I've worked at Yonder. And before that, I never talked about money with my friends either, or my family. And so really my learnings have been in the last 18 months when I've been not pushing the product in front of my friends, but talking to them about having a credit card or how they manage their money, realizing that so many more of my male friends have credit cards and so many more of my female friends just haven't really thought about it. And like working at Yonder has meant that I've done a lot of research into like why this is the case. There is clearly a gap, a credit gender gap. And like, I think you mentioned there's a gender pay gap, right? And that probably forms the basis of it because your credit report is built around how much money you earn and like what you do with that money.
Yeah.
So if there is a gender pay gap, then there is going to be a gender credit gap because women, I think the data recently revealed there's like a 15% gender pay gap or something.
Yeah. So
if women have access to 15% less credit, then they are going to have less access to credit products because, there might be a credit product like Yonder, for example, where you have to earn a minimum amount of money each year to be able to get the credit card.
Yeah.
So if you're not earning that, then you're already not getting access to a credit card that someone earning more than you can do. So I think there is, to answer your question, yes, there is a gender credit gap. And I think there's a lot of reasons why. I think the main one is that, apart from the gender pay gap, is that traditionally men went out and worked, earned money, and women stayed at home and didn't earn money. All of the financial, all your home finances, the man took control of.
Yeah.
So then if you don't have any financial products or even like a phone bill, if you don't have that under your name, then you don't have any credit report. And if you don't have any credit report, you can't get access to so many financial products like a credit card.
Yeah, so it's almost like a self-perpetuating cycle in a way. It's that if you're excluded from the remit of credit, you're not involved in the finances, then you then make it's more difficult for you to access.
Exactly. And it's like, how do you go about getting yourself onto like getting a credit report, whether it's like getting that first phone bill or making sure you have your name on something and showing to lenders that you can be lent to and repay, and then are therefore a less riskier person to lend money to.
Yeah.
Because that's what it is, right? Women are deemed riskier to lend money to, and that's what the gender credit gap is.
I find that so interesting as well, like just that simple perception that the industry, through the way that I guess it behaves in lending, thinks that women are riskier because actually a lot of the statistics when you look at investing, for example, suggest that women are less risky and that women are actually more considered in the decisions that they make. But it's funny how credit actually almost goes the opposite way because it requires you to be involved and to be using credit to show that you're able to use it and manage it. But you mentioned there that you, before working at Yonder, didn't really talk about money with your family, with your friends. So what led you actually to taking a role in a financial company?
I think like that reason, like first and foremost, is that first of all, like Yonder is doing something incredible for the world of credit. Like credit inherently has a terrible name. Like something like 42% of people like do not trust credit companies. And how are you going to change that? Like if companies are still charging you interest and you're getting into these cycles of debt and all you hear in the media is like the negatives, then how's that going to change? Like the narrative's always going to be that like negative cycle of debt and money and borrowing, blah, blah, blah. So like when I first heard of Yonder, which by the way, when I joined was not yet a product. It was like an idea. I was the 5th employee. So I was right. I've been there right from the beginning, basically. But when I first heard about it, I was like, this is really cool. Like I know nothing about credit. I never talk about money, but I can play a really pivotal role in changing that for people of my generation and younger, because I think credit has a really negative name, like has a bad, there's so much bad like aura because people older than us have told us like not to get credit because you will get into debt, because credit is debt, right?
Yeah.
So don't get credit. And so if you've got all that, if you're just hearing that, when there are actually so many benefits to having a credit card, which I've only learned since working at Yonder, but now I have that knowledge and now I can play a role in like making that more accessible to more people. That's just really exciting. I love a challenge. So that for me was like, it was a no-brainer. But also like my role at Yonder is I get to eat out basically I like for work. So that was also
what a dream.
That was also a big reason why I took the job. Like I didn't have any knowledge or experience in the financial world, but I didn't need it to do my role. But then I'm so interested in it, and actually, so I can come on things like this and talk from a point of like knowledge and information and like experience. Like I try and get as involved in knowing that side of the product, because it is, the rewards are like the benefits of Yonder, but the access to credit and responsible management of money is like what we're trying to change. And that's where we stand out, I think, from other companies in the industry.
Well, yeah. And I mean, you mentioned it there that Yonder is doing something different. Mm-hmm. It's changing an industry, which I think has a reputation for, like you say, being quite negative, sometimes being a bit like old-fashioned in its approach. Mm-hmm. What is it that's different about Yonder? And, why is it changing things up a bit? Yeah,
so I wrote down like a list of so many things that Yonder's doing differently. I think if you start at like the beginning of the process, so applying for a credit card, up until, of not knowledge to me, most credit companies, you have to have a credit score in order to get access to credit. So like back to that cycle of like, where do you start, the chicken and the egg? Like if you don't have a credit score, how can you get a credit card? And if you can't get a credit card, how do you get a credit score? Yeah, exactly. So we'll look at your credit report if you have one, but what we do is we use open banking. So we look at your incomings and your outgoings, and we see whether you are like able to afford to lend and repay to us. So I think that's quite a cool thing. The idea of Yonder was actually born because two of the co-founders are from Australia, and when they moved over to the UK, they had no UK credit history and couldn't.
That's a big
access.
One, isn't it? Right. Expats, there's a horrible term for it, that they're essentially like invisible from a credit point of view when they come here.
Yeah. And so the idea, so that was the reason behind not having a credit score, is because we want to make credit like the access to credit, to give access to credit to so many more people, including those expats that come over and can't get it straight away. So that's the first thing that we do differently. And then when you're a member at Yonder, the UX is just really simple. It's everything you would expect from like a modern day banking account in your app. the language is really clear. I think if you were to read, if you read like what other companies might put on your, like they call your bills statements, for example, like why use the word statement when you can just say your bill's due rather than your statement is due? That makes no sense. I think our like billing cycle is the same for everyone, no matter what day of the month you sign up. So it's done on calendar month rather than a month after you sign up, which can become really confusing when you get your income on different days and your rent goes out on different days.
That's such a good point, because I was speaking to someone recently who said, I know I need to get a credit card, start building my credit score. What are the things I need to think about? How do I set it up? And I had to go through and explain all of the different dates that things happen. So it's like you spend money here, you get your statement on this date, but you don't get billed and they don't take the money until this date. And then you have to start the cycle again, but the spending on this date will then go into 6 weeks later. It's a minefield.
It is so confusing. And like, so yeah, just the language, having just modern day language basically is quite different to other banks or other lenders. Also, we call ourselves an ethical lender. So if you miss 2 payments, then we will freeze your fees and your interest, and essentially won't allow you to keep using the product because you might be getting into more debt. So we're really clear about when your bill's due, how many days left you have to get it, or this is how much interest you'll be charged if you borrow the money. So we don't want people to get into spirals of debt. Like, we don't want them to do that. So we try and make the language and the prompting of our messaging really, really clear so that you can't come to us and be like, you didn't tell me, because we're there to help you manage your money better whilst giving you all the benefits of a credit card. So, you know, having access to credit, it's a safer way of spending. You know, if you're, it's protection, you know, you've got purchase protection, right? So if you order something and it doesn't arrive, something arrives that wasn't what you expected, or it was broken or something, then you've got protection over that. And then the other thing about credit cards is that there's the rewards element to them, right? So our rewards are quite unique in that we are trying to help you discover the city that you live in better. So you earn a point for every pound you spend on your card, and we're a MasterCard, so we're accepted everywhere. And then those points accumulate, and then you can use those points at restaurants and bars across London. Again, kind of going back to the expat story, that when you land in a new city and you don't know what to do, you don't know how to spend your time or money, we're hopefully helping you discover that through your credit card, which is really strange for a lot of people. I check Yonder every day, like my app. And I go, because I kind of have to see that the experiences, which is what we call our rewards, look okay. And sometimes I'll just drop a new reward into the experiences section, and like there's no like traction. There's no one's talking about it, no one's picking it up or anything. And we did some research into this, and everyone was like, yeah, I don't check my credit card app every day. Like, that's weird. I only check it when I want to pay my bill or whatever it is. So there's a lot of like behavioral things associated with credit cards that we're trying to change. Rewards being one of them, so that you feel like you're being rewarded more regularly than other products would reward you. And then, you know, we try and do fun things. Like we have we do events like the Money series, which Ellie, you were on our first one, and Victoria, you're coming on the panel of our second one, which is so exciting. We have a community where we have a constant feedback loop from people using our app and telling us if there's a bug or if something doesn't work or if something's unclear. And we really listen to that, and we try to update the app as much as possible when things are like come up time and time again. And everyone is on member support. That's a big thing. So I think we're now 27 employees or something, but when we launched to public, there were 10 of us, one of which was a member support person. So we offer 24/7 member support, customer support. Obviously one person can't do that the whole time. So every single employee, even the CEO, all the co-founders, spend like 6 hours a week, less so now, but speaking to customers And it's really great for all of us because we learn what the pain points are and where we need to do work and improve the product and just make our customers' experience with Yonder so much better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a question. I don't know if you'll know the answer to this.
Sure.
So if you don't know the answer, we can skip over it. But I'll ask you and then we do it. But do you actually know what the gender split of Yonder customers is?
I actually don't, because we don't ask for what your gender is when you apply for the account. So the only way we'd be able to do that is by using like AI to work out from like names, the gender of names.
Got you.
So we haven't actually been able to work that out. I can't answer that.
One thing I was wondering, I don't know if you know this, do you know about the age demographics?
Yes. Yeah. We know the age demographics.
And you've touched on some of the benefits of having a credit card, but for those people who are really, they have for years and years had these negative connotations of credit, they're really concerned about getting into debt. I'd love if you could just talk a bit about why it's actually really important to have credit and why you think it's important for millennials and Gen Z to understand, why it is important to have some credit.
Yeah. Okay. So I think when we talk about spending on your credit over your debit, we think about like three things really. So there's the reward side of things. So if you're spending on your debit, you're not getting any rewards.
No.
Right?
Just money out your bank.
Exactly. And then the second thing is the purchase protection. So when you're spending Yonders or whoever you're lending from, when you're spending their money, it's like, and something goes wrong, then you're protected above a certain amount of spend.
Yeah, it's something that I think is so important as well that people maybe don't realize in travel particularly. There have been so many examples of like travel companies collapsing, and if you paid on credit, you are protected for that. Whereas if you paid on debit, it's like paying cash and you've got to chase for the money to come back.
Exactly. And when you make a huge purchase, imagine spending like £1,000 on a sofa or something.
Yeah.
If you spent that and it came out of your current account, it's just scary, like that amount of money going in one go. Whereas at least you know that you do have enough money in your current account to pay for that. But you'll pay for it at the end of the month when you get your bill. It just for me is so much more reassuring, and now I'm like, I can't believe I didn't have a credit card 18 months ago. And then the other thing is like building a credit score, which is going to help you further down the line when you want to get a mortgage or that's the big thing, isn't it? Everyone talks about credit score and a mortgage, and like, yes, you can build your credit score by a phone bill, by like repaying a phone bill or whatever it is. But I think it's one of the best ways of building that credit score in the long run.
Yeah, it's so much harder to do without credit. And I think people often say, why is this the way it's set up? But I actually always use the analogy, and I think it really makes sense of, if you've got two friends and they're both asking you to borrow £1,000, whereas one of them you've literally never lent money to before. They're like, oh, I've got £1,000 in the bank, but can I borrow £1,000 just because I don't want to use the money in my savings account? And there's another one where they've, borrowed £100 a few times. They've always paid it back on time. Like, you're confident that is the one that's going to actually repay you on time. Even if someone's sat saying, oh, I've got all this money in my savings. If you're lending them your money, that doesn't really help you. You need to be confident that they're going to pay you back. And that's how lending tends to work.
Totally.
It's just that proof, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right. I mean, getting a mortgage, getting on the property ladder, it's a huge thing. And it's a huge thing here in the UK amongst young people. And we actually had a mortgage broker on the podcast a couple of weeks ago. And we were asking him about credit score and how mortgage lenders actually look at your credit score. And I think a lot of people understandably get really confused because you can log into any of the credit scoring agencies and get a rating. But when a lender is looking at you, exactly as Ellie said, like, they want to see that you actually have evidence that you've borrowed some money and reliably made those payments back. Like, they are going to look. And I think, it's just not talked about enough.
And it's made really hard. Like you just mentioned, credit scores until really recently, you had to pay to be able to see your credit score. Like, why make things more difficult than they need to be? And that, I think that creates a barrier to entry, like straight away. Like, I don't want to pay to then see that I've got a bad credit score, whatever it is. Like, it's up to companies like Yonder and like everyone else in the industry to make it so much easier for people of our age and younger to manage their money better. Like, it is down to us. It is down to educating and making things so simple that you almost don't need to educate. I know that is quite contradictory, but it kind of makes sense.
Yeah, it does, because the system operates how it operates. You know, as much as I'd like to rebuild the credit system, like, that's not realistic, but there is so much that companies can do within the scope of what currently exists to make it more understandable, accessible, simple to navigate. Thank you to Yonder for sponsoring this episode.
Yonder is the epic new credit card that rewards London's foodies and adventurers with experiences at some of the city's best places to eat and explore.
Earn points when you spend, then use your points at our choice of bars, restaurants and experiences in and around London, like Cricket, Bow and Unplugged.
It's as easy as paying with your card and swiping on your app. What's not to love?
New customers get 1 month free and a £50 dining credit. To find out if you're eligible now by heading to yondercard.com.
Yonder wants to help younger people use credit responsibly, so make sure you only borrow what you can afford to pay back.
Your application is subject to eligibility and you'll need to be over 18 and a UK resident to apply. A membership fee and T&Cs apply. The representative rate is 64% APR variable. One big barrier to entry, I think, is this comprehension or anxiety that a lot of people feel around the topic of credit because of these negative stories. And I saw somewhere that something like 47% of millennials feel anxious about using credit. Why, from your experience with, you know, customers and friends, do you think that there is so much anxiety about it?
It's a very good question. And yeah, it's one that I probably wouldn't have been able to answer 2 years ago. But having spoken to lots of customers and like now being a credit card customer myself, I find it easier to discuss. But yeah, I think one big thing is like, there is just this negative press around credit. And it's this, cloud of negativity that I think we're getting better at talking about it more, but it's a taboo topic, right? And if you're not talking about things, then how are you going to make a difference to it? I kind of like try to discuss financial health a bit like mental health. Mental health 10 years ago wasn't talked about. And now it's talked about so much more and people open up and talk about it. So why I feel like financial health needs to go down the same road, and we need to start being way more open about talking about money and not making it such a taboo topic, which is why Yonder is trying to host these open discussion panel events where you're creating a space of vulnerability where you can just ask whatever you want and you won't be judged, and you'll learn things that you can take away from you and then read up on it or listen to more podcasts like this, for example, and just build on the information that you have, because there's so much information out there. So you've got to want to also access it. Like, it's not just going to appear on your lap and you'll suddenly become really educated on finance. But yes, you've got to want to do it. But I think if there's a lot more positive talk about the ways in which credit can add to your life rather than like make it a really scary like drain in your life, then I think that anxiety will naturally, the percentage of people that feel anxious about it will naturally decrease. When I speak to friends, they're just like, oh, I don't need it. Like, I just don't need a credit card because I've got enough money in my current account to pay for things. And I'm like, that's not the point.
Again, it's just that perception, isn't it? It's like credit cards are only for people who are in a bad situation.
Yes. Yeah. It's just this really negative. Yeah. There's just a long-standing like negative thing associated with credit. And I think that's the reason why. I can't remember what the other bit of your question was.
No,
Have I answered it? Or
that though has kind of made me think of another question, which is actually, have you seen a shift since you've been working in this space and you've been becoming more financially literate? Have you seen a shift in the conversations you have with friends, and have you influenced them, I guess, positively to think a bit broader about these topics?
Yeah, completely. When we first launched, I sent like the sign up. We had a 6-month free trial for our earliest members, and I sent it to a lot of my friends who. It's funny now. I look back and I was like, really, why am I pushing a credit card in front of people? Like, that's not the best thing to do. But I sent it to a lot of friends, and from that point on, I started having conversations with friends that I'd never had. They started literally the first question they'd be like, is like, why do I need a credit card? Or what's so good about Yonder? And then ever since, I'm now their person of contact that they'll come to about all things credit, which is really cool.
So
because
interesting, yeah.
I suddenly feel like I'm not an expert at it, no way, but I just have a lot more knowledge than my friends, and I'm hopefully helping them like educate themselves about how to spend or how to use a credit card responsibly. So we did our first money event with you, Ellie, which was a open panel discussion about money and women, because of the gender credit gap, the gender pay gap, all the gender gaps associated with money. And that opened up loads of interesting conversations on the day, but also with my friends. So I think I had 5 girlfriends come along to that. And we were sat like clearing up after the event, and I had a WhatsApp notification from one of my friends, and she'd added every girl from that friendship group that come to the event to a group called Gimme the Money, Honey. And it's kickstarted this quarterly dinner where we get together, a bit like a book club, but a money club, and talk about money. And you don't even talk about money for the entire duration, but like just starting those conversations, whether it's like, who do you bank with? Or why is that credit card better for you than it is for you? Because I had a friend there who was a freelancer, and she asked about like how freelancers are discriminated against when it comes to like getting access to credit, because if you don't have like a income that's consistent every month, then that can be looked at as like, unstable, and therefore you won't be able to repay. So like, what can you do as a freelancer in that situation? And I know at that point that Yonder's not the right credit card to push in front of my friend, but I can hopefully from the industry and like from the conversations I'm having, I can hopefully provide like an answer to a better product that suits that person, because one product it's not one size fits all, right?
Yeah.
So I think the conversations that I'm having with my friends now around money are just it's just really positive, and it's really inspiring, I think.
Honestly, I love it. Like, it's so encouraging and brilliant to hear. I couldn't agree more. It's similar to mental health. Like, it was such a taboo a while ago, and now we're open about it. But like mental health, our financial health is such a fundamentally important part of our lives and how we navigate the world on a day-to-day basis. So I think it's really brilliant. And I love the Give Me the Money, Honey. Like, that's amazing. And the panel events. I do think it's just such a great kind of mission. But one thing I've been thinking this entire time is, it's funny, before we started recording, I was recommending a face cream, and we recommend products to our friends and family all the time. But again, because of the negative connotations, and because there's almost a bit of shame and guilt around being in any form of debt, you just don't hear people saying to their friends and family, oh, get this credit card. I've got this credit card. I really recommend you get it.
Yeah.
And I think what's so amazing about Yonder and how fun you've made it, and how it's all, there is a very good reason to recommend that to a friend or a family member without feeling any sort of awkwardness. And I'd just love to know, as you've seen it grow, are you seeing those kind of word of mouth referrals come through that I think are so kind of necessary, to really build and spread the mission and the message?
Yeah, like referrals were our largest channel of growth at some point. I think
Wow.
when we first launched the referral scheme, that was so. What happens when you refer someone is that you, as a referrer, get 500 points,
Nice.
which is loads of points. That can get you like maybe a third of a meal at one of our partners. So, and then they get like a free monthly trial. And when you sign up as a new Yonder customer, no matter what, you get a £50 credit to spend at one of our dining partners straight away. So yeah, it has been a really, really important channel of growth for us. But there is still, I'm not gonna lie about it, there is still a little bit of like stickiness about referring.
People shouting about, hey, I've got this credit card, you should get it too.
Yeah, about sharing a credit card product to someone, because they might not, as I touched on earlier, you have to earn a certain amount. There's also we charge a £15 monthly fee, and that's a huge barrier to entry because there are so many products out there where you don't have to pay a fee. And we're very clear about why we charge that. And you said you just touched on now that you referred a face cream, and that's probably more than £15, right? But
Sure, yeah.
But like other companies have had to rely on quite heavily on interest in order to like earn money for their company. But we want to diversify how we get revenue. We like, if you're relying on interest, but you're also making sure that your members don't borrow, then you're not going to make money, right? So we are trying to do like other things like charging the monthly fee, working with partners in order to get our revenue from different sources as well. So we're not just reliant on interest.
Yeah. I'm so glad that you mentioned that, because I do think that it's a question that a lot of people will be asking, because fundamentally, as you say, the business model of a lot of lenders is to earn money from people not repaying.
Yeah.
So I think for a lot of people, there is that question mark still, which you've really perfectly addressed, of how do you balance like a credit card that can be sustainable and make money as a business that isn't harming or hoping for your customers to miss payments. And it's awesome to hear that you've got multiple different ways that's done at Yonder, like the freezing and like diversifying. And I think actually when you think about it like that, it makes the fee make a lot more sense, and it's a lot more, I guess, digestible as a customer to think, actually, that's great because they're trying to be a business that helps people to use credit in a way that doesn't encourage them to just like wait till a few months later to pay it and add on the interest, which we see across the industry all the time. So it's I think a really important point to note.
Yeah, and we're really transparent about this kind of thing. Our head of finance, Priscilla, she wrote a blog post on this, which is available to everyone to see on our website, and it literally details out how Yonder makes money and why we charge a monthly fee and what goes into that monthly fee. We have no FX fees abroad, so it makes Yonder a really great card to use when you're traveling abroad. Also, travel insurance is included. And then there's the rewards. And then, operationally, we wouldn't be able to operate unless we had some kind of money going towards that. So yeah, if you wanted to see how that £15 breaks down, you can go to our website and read that blog post, and it literally tells you where every single penny goes.
We can definitely link that into the show notes so anyone can read that.
Yeah.
But just in terms of your role, especially, I would love to know, how do you go about choosing the partners? Because you have some incredible partners on there.
Yeah. Everyone is
we need to know who your favorite is. We have to know.
Everyone is jealous of my role at Yonder. So just to introduce myself quickly to the listeners, I'm the head of rewards at Yonder. We call our rewards experiences because we're trying to help you discover and experience your city. And when I first started, the CEO, when he spoke to me, he was like, so, you know, there's like loads of great places to eat out in London and there's loads of great things to do. And we need someone who's just going to own that and decide what those places are. And I'm a huge foodie. I like spend all my money on eating out. So my experience, that was my experience though. I'd never worked in food.
Yeah.
But it's, aside from money now, it's the thing that I speak about with my friends most. It's like where we go for dinner, what we order, that kind of thing. So I have this sort of like list, like that is ever growing, of places to go and eat out across the city. And I just reach out to the restaurants and I say, hi, we are a new lifestyle credit card for Londoners. We are spotlighting 10 restaurants this month where we want to promote to our members. Can we please put you as one of them this month? And, you know, a lot of, in the restaurant world, brand reputation is a huge thing. So I've got a lot of no's, and in my head, I'm like, why not? We're literally sending people to spend money at your restaurant.
Why not?
I think it's a brand reputational thing. And a lot of restaurants, I mean, as someone who eats out a lot knows, don't need any more promotion. Like they've got
wait lists.
It's hard to book a table. But then what we can do is almost assure them that the spend will be higher, because we can tell you that if someone comes to your restaurant, they're going to be spending this many points. They have to. This is the fair use limit. So they will be spending X amount. And we see from the data that people spend way more than the fair use limit, because if you're going to a restaurant and you're getting £100 off, you're probably going to spend more, right? So that's the conversation that we can have with the restaurants, to like, not, they don't need help with the footfall, but the spend per head can be a lot higher. But yeah, how I choose it is literally just from reading. I read a lot about the industry. I know all the new restaurants when they're opening, where they're opening. And once you're in with one, then it's much easier to get in with others. One of our first restaurants that we had on was Cricket. Do you know Cricket?
Yeah.
Like
really good.
Indian, three locations across London. So the owner of, well, one of the owners of Cricket was actually a family friend's husband. And I actually didn't do any of the business through him. I did it all through their PR agency. But like, I just knew that they've got a really great reputation and they have been really great to work with. And that like, when we do stuff like the billboards and all the out of home campaigns, we'll probably want to mention some of the partners, and just having the permission from those restaurants is like really important.
Yeah.
But it's been dining and so eating out and drinking locations up until now. We've tested into some travel ones too. So for a couple of months we had Kip on, which is almost like an Airbnb of sustainable places, like staycation places across the UK. We've got Unplugged on there at the moment. Do you know Unplugged?
Yes.
Oh, I'm
desperate to go.
I am desperate. Well, you've got 20,000 Yonder points, so you can go to an Unplugged.
No way.
Yeah, so it's 3 nights of like digital detox in these amazing cabins outside of London. So that's on at the moment. And then we're going to test into lots of other like entertainment offers, like cinema tickets, live sport. I really want to do. And then boutique travel in other countries as well. My dream is that you fly to a city, or you like jump on the Eurostar to Paris, you open your Yonder up in Paris, and suddenly all your rewards are like located in Paris.
Oh, that would be incredible.
Yeah, it would be. So I've got a big job on my hands.
We will be looking out. Like, we honestly cannot wait to see all this. But for now, you have to tell us, where is your favorite restaurant or bar in London right now to spend your Yonder points? So
my favorite one at the moment is probably Bao. Do you know Bao?
I've actually never been, which is so weird because I love a Bao bun.
I actually didn't like Bao buns before I went to Bao, and now I'm obsessed. But yeah, there's 4 locations, or 5, I think. They've just closed one, but across London, and it's one of our most popular experiences.
Nice.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised at all. This has been so great. And I feel like we've covered so much ground, from the gender credit gap to the issues with the industry and how Yonder is looking to try and improve the credit industry really as a whole, as well as obviously the foodie parts.
Yeah.
For anyone that wants to find out more about Yonder, what you do, how they can get involved, what is the best thing to do? Where can we find you?
So you can go to our website, which is yondercard.com. We're on Instagram at yondercard and also on TikTok. You can just reach out to us on email. We've got someone on member support 24/7. And we're so happy to sort of, answer all your questions. Come to our events, look out for our events. We share those on LinkedIn mostly. That's where we do all our event publicity. You can follow me on LinkedIn and then find out all the details there.
Amazing. Thank you so much. We will put all of those links into the show notes so anyone can find out information. And just thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me.
Oh, thank you so much. I can't wait to go.